Jeremy Rossbach.
Hey,
Welcome,
Nick.
Jeremy.
Nick, so
How are
great
you?
to see you. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Oh my God, my pleasure. I always have a great time chatting with you.
Hmm.
So I thought, let's chat some more. Let me bring my microphone over, make
There you
sure
go.
everyone can actually hear what I'm saying. There we go. Yeah. So anyway, so great to have you, on the program. So I thought we'd start out, and the main reason for doing the Built for Trust podcast has really been around introducing, people to others in the community.
Mm,
So it's kind of a community building kind of exercise.
hmm.
But also it's crazy because you really get to know people a lot more by doing these kinds of things than almost anything else.
Yeah, yeah,
So anyway, so I thought what would be really good is why don't we start with your career journey?
yeah.
Like, what brought you to being on the pod?
So I was a music major in college and figured out after a couple years that I wasn't going to be able to feed myself because
Mm,
I didn't want to teach and I just wanted to
yeah.
perform. And I was studying jazz at the time in music. And but as growing up as a kid, I used music and also drawing. I was really, really good at drawing. They were my two passions. And even in college, I drew to
Uh,
pay the rent. I would draw puppies and babies for their grandmothers, and and I could charge a nice dollar, and it would help pay the rent. So I decided,
yeah.
and Nick, you may remember this, some younger folks may not, but there was a show in the 80s called 30 something. And it was about an advertising
Yeah.
agency. And I just love the idea of being able to take something in my head and just have a million people see it. And so I switched my major to advertising and marketing and used my other skills in art to be creative in the business side. So graduated with a marketing degree, and I didn't have the ability to go to New York or LA to really make it in the ad business. So started out in just doing marketing for small startups and stuff like that. And in a small office, sometimes computers break, right? And you only have like a dozen people there, and then you got to call the corporate office and they walk you through how to fix something. And I got selected to do that, and it seemed to come really easy to me, just fixing these things and problem
Mm,
solving and fixing stuff seemed to be one of my passions. I really enjoyed it. So I ended up going into tech because in the 90s, the money was great. It was a hell of a lot more money than I was making in marketing at the time at $19,000 a year, being 22 years old. And ended up starting with a healthcare company as like a PC tech, and then moved up to a junior LAN admin, and then a LAN admin, and then progressing from job to job. Because in the 90s, you remember, we just went where the money was, and um, ended up
yeah.
being a WAN administrator, and then data center architect, and then managing teams that did all those positions that I just mentioned. And I really enjoyed the problem
Mm,
solving of the IT career I had. Getting people who are frustrated, making them happy again. You name it, whatever the field is, tech, doctor. I mean, it was just a good feeling for me to be able to fix something and know that it made someone happier. And towards probably, oh my God, almost 20 years ago, ended up at CA Technologies, and who we all know in 2018 was bought by Broadcom. I was running data centers for CA Technologies. Data center
mm,
consolidations happened, and I ended up moving into like pre-sales, which is like technical sales, giving demos of the products we were selling, the solutions, and kind of came full circle and went into marketing with CA and Broadcom. And now I use the expertise that I have running data centers as a marketeer, and I find it's very
mm,
fruitful to be able to sit down as a marketer and tell war stories with the customer. a lot of marketing. It could be a lot of
Yeah.
fluff, and maybe a network engineer doesn't want to talk to a marketer. They want to talk to a pre-sales technical guy, but I can sit down and be like, listen, I've been paged at 3 a.m. in the morning because a server went down or a branch office wasn't replying back, or I know the trouble you're going through. And that was
Hmm.
20, 30 years ago. And those same use cases still exist, right? Can't get to this branch office, router dropped, but now it's on such a bigger scale because the ISPs, somebody at an ISP may, I know this term might go over well, fat finger a configuration and drops the entire East
Yeah.
Coast. And that's where we're at now. So that's my career. And I still play music on the side, like, part time. It is still my passion,
Yeah.
and still the best place I love to be is on stage, making people happy, honestly.
Yeah. It's well, that's a great journey. Thanks so much for sharing that,
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy. It's like it is kind of interesting once you spend some time like within IT. You would think that the problems would, become different,
Mm-hmm.
over time, but a lot of times they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm usually tech support in my house, and even like in the business, so it's like I got to say, not too many staff come to me with a technical problem. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, hey, my computer isn't working, but it does happen actually every once in a while, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed like and how much you can actually get done with just shut it off and turn it back on. It's just like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just
Did you
so
reboot? That
easy
was the
that
very
way.
first thing we would ask people. Have you rebooted yet?
Yeah, it's
Yep.
like it's like now I'm tech support mostly to my wife. My
Mm-hmm.
kids not so much anymore. They're older now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
mostly to my
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's a great journey. Thanks for sharing it. So yeah, your music career. So I had no idea that you were so musically inclined and accomplished. So I think we've talked about that before, but I think at the last summit in Manhattan, when you got up on stage and just kind of let it rip,
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty amazing. Like
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
no idea you had that in you.
Yeah. Well,
That was
listen,
really, really great.
the constant performer I've been called. And yeah, I mean, I get so much out of giving over enjoyment to others. So, whether maybe I hit the wrong note
Yeah,
during that gig, or hit the wrong chord, or maybe the song was being played by the band faster than I wanted. Everyone was dancing, everyone was singing along. And Nick, there's no better feeling
yeah,
than to play like you do and watch folks sing
mm,
along with you to the song you're singing. I
yeah,
mean, it's pure bliss. Yeah, it can be scary as hell, but it is absolutely pure bliss knowing that in this moment you have all these folks in your hand and you're providing them such joy. It's quite a unique experience. And then you just kind of give over to the fact that I'm going to play this the best I can. I'm not going to worry what people think. And most of the time they don't give a crap or even hear that you may have hit the wrong chord.
well, that's that actually is really important because it's like I'm still really self-conscious, of like, okay, technique,
Yeah.
hitting the right chords,
Mhm.
not losing time, like all that kind of stuff, but I'll tell you though, it's like, I think I'm not sure where the joy is greater, like in performing. So, it's either when you're seeing like, friends, family, strangers, getting into what you're playing.
Mhm.
That's a huge high, as a performer. There's no doubt. I got to see the bug that kind of caught me. It was like I was at a birthday party and I was playing a couple of songs with a band, and I had some family members there, and one was my nephew's daughter, and she had to be like 8 at that time. And so I had just finished playing, and I was putting my guitar down, and she was, standing right in front of me, almost like, when the Grinch before
Uh,
Christmas,
uh-huh.
comes down into like stealing the Christmas tree, and there's
Uh-huh.
that little girl, and
Yeah.
that was her, and
Yeah.
she's like, Uncle Nick, I just want to say that was really good. You played great. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
that
Yeah, it just
that
takes
kind of
one
blew me
person. It
away.
just
That
takes
was
one
like,
connection too. Yeah. I wanted to
yeah,
say, and
yeah,
Nick,
that was like super.
I did notice in New York that you were very focused on how you were playing, and which any
Yeah.
musician should be, of course. But I will say this, and you said it perfectly. I've said this for so many years. There's no better high than to be on stage for certain people who are drawn to that. But Nick,
Yeah.
and you will know this. I spent so many years in playing in bars and big venues. I did a huge benefit concert for like the Susan Komen breast awareness walk. That was like 30,000 people. But
Wow. Yeah. That's big.
but I will say this: if the audience isn't into it, it destroys you. And it could be a football
Uh-huh.
game. I'm in a bar. It could be a football game on it. It could be nothing in my control. But if they're not into it, it affects a musician so
Mm,
drastically. And
mm,
and so if they were happy, I was happy, and I would go home thinking I had a good gig. If they weren't into it, I could have played perfectly and still went home and felt like crap. But
yeah.
I will tell you
Yeah.
this: there is a level above that high when people are singing back to you. You are giving them joy, and it's something I discovered through therapy many years ago. Is I don't care what they think anymore. I play
Mm,
music for me and me only. If I'm up on
mm,
stage, I try not to figure out what they're thinking, so I can then figure out how I feel. I close my eyes sometimes, I dance a bit, and I'm playing for me. And it is such an amazing
mm,
feeling when you can let go of all that pressure of being on stage to just
mm.
play for yourself. That is a level I never thought I would ever achieve, mentally and musically, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that because when I play, my wife always sends me in the basement to like play to the ants. So it's like if the ants are not dancing, it's like then I know like I'm not
Exactly.
playing really, very,
Exactly.
very, very well.
Uh-huh.
But I do have myself to entertain. And John Mayer said this once. Is that like he basically said is like my only. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Um, my only condition was I wanted to be able to play looking out over at a window and it to sound really good, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
And I tell you, I think there's a lot of like kind of truth in that when you're because most musicians obviously you practice alone, and you start to play. There are times when I'm playing and I'm amazed at what's coming out of my guitar. I'm like,
Mhm.
did I just do
Mhm.
that?
Mhm. Yeah, it
That's
just
like,
clicks. Yep.
I'm like, oh my God, I never knew I could do that.
Mhm.
And it's like, and then it's distracting because it's like, then I lose where I am.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just got
I'm
to
like,
let go. I totally agree.
I'm so impressed
And
with
then
with the
and
music,
and then when I moved into like a lead singer role, it was really difficult. And there was a point in my guitar career where I had perfected, or whatever the word is, as a damn good rhythm guitarist, and my mind just was like, listen, we'll take care of your left hand, you concentrate on the lyrics. So for the most part,
mm-hmm.
my mind has been able to be trained to know. I mean, when you play the same Gloria Gaynor or Violent Femme song for the past 30 years, your hands are going to know what chords, what position they need to be in for the chords. And now I just try to make sure I remember the lyrics, and my hand kind of does all the work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But it is very, very cool. And I will say this,
Mm,
this, being on stage is a very vulnerable spot to be in, a
yeah.
very vulnerable
Yeah.
spot. Everyone is looking at you. It's so much
Mm,
pressure on yourself. You think they hear every wrong note or a bad, lick, or maybe you muted a string. You weren't supposed to mute it, or your fingers aren't keeping up with your picking.
yeah.
It is a tough place to be, putting yourself in the spotlight, and it's a place to grow. And of course, it's a place to make not only yourself, but a lot of people happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a magical. experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I just my only regret is that I didn't learn how to play earlier. Like I'm always in awe, like for like folks like you who started playing, like in your teens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I have a lot of friends who are very accomplished guitarists, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to play with them, because they're so good, and so you're kind of just playing rhythm, mostly for them, but they just but it is interesting though because like I think people learn their instruments differently. There are
Mm-hmm.
some that kind of study their instrument,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of learn music theory and how to play various chords, kind of up and down the neck, and scales, and they can name the whole cage system and which pentatonic that they're playing over
Mm-hmm.
which particular chord
Mm-hmm.
or which diatonic. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so obviously like I studied kind of the music theory side of it, and there are others, and I have a couple of friends like this. It's like when I first started learning a pentatonic scale, I'm like, oh man, just learning the pentatonic scale, and they're like, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, man, like you play like freaking crazy great.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, no, I never learned any of that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's all by ear.
Yeah.
And they listened. They had, well, at the time, records. They would have records on, and they would repeat them over and over again, and then just try to play what they were hearing. And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
so it's very, really very different, and one isn't better than the other, of course, but it's different ways to get there, and it has to do, I think, a little bit of the relationship that you have with your instrument. It's like, I kind of look at my instrument as like something I need to conquer.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not my, it's not my friend. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's my friend, but most of the time it's my freaking
Yeah.
enemy because
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like
listen,
it's like
I will say this. I would maybe the word better, one way of learning is better than the other, but I will say I studied music theory in college. I mean, I was a music major, but I was on the jazz side, the jazz
yeah,
saxophone side.
yeah,
Um, but I will say this: I picked up the guitar when I was in my teens because it seemed to be the coolest thing to do, and women liked it, and I could get more gigs instead of playing jazz in DC. And I learned by ear, and I really regret doing that because
yeah,
when you learn theory, I have an opera singer as a daughter who went to the Ithaca School of Music, and I ask her for help sometimes when I'm trying to figure out a way to hit a note or play something differently. Music theory and pentatonics, they teach you how to play a C major chord 18 different ways on the neck,
yeah.
depending on where the next chord you got to move to, So
Mm.
it helps you understand the flow of the song you're playing. So you don't have to play a C down here at the, first fret, first, second, and third fret, and then have to move up to the 16th fret for some harmonic or something. You can stay in that general area and play
Yeah.
everything because there's only 7 notes in a scale. I mean, honestly, there's seven
Mm.
whole notes in the scale, but they can be
Yeah.
played hundreds of different ways. So I
Yeah.
think theory teaches you how to be efficient with your playing. I
Yeah.
wish I didn't learn it by ear, which is why I'm a damn good rhythm guitarist and I can't shred like
Mm.
Mayer can. But I did buy one of his guitars recently. So yeah,
Ah,
there's
awesome.
a good and bad. There's a good
Mm.
and bad. I do wish I studied privately on the guitar with an instructor and went to Berkeley School of Music like he did, and then dropped out and became a rock star.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Berkeley is a great institution in Boston.
Hmm.
We kind of view it as like it's the MIT of music,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, so a lot of folks that go there, they do, they're kind of scary smart. They
hmm,
can play so many different instruments.
yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so let's, one, I love this conversation. And I can go on longer, but I do want us to talk a little bit about industry stuff.
Ooh,
So yeah, I know it's like,
all
it won't
good.
be boring,
Uh-huh.
it won't be boring. So you've been kind of concentrating kind of in the NetOps space, for a while. And actually, when I was on your podcast, we talked a little bit
Hmm.
about kind of future of NetOps, and so maybe the now the key question, that is different from when we had talked on your pod was the kind of the emergence of the discussion around agentic AI.
Hmm.
and how agentic may impact, on NetOps. So I don't know when, how are you and kind of and Broadcom kind of viewing kind of agentic AI and how that might impact like network operations?
Oh, I
Any
got
of
a
that
lot of
thought?
thoughts.
Hmm. Okay.
Listen, like I said, we are still humanly responsible for dropping the entire east coast of AT&T's network.
Hmm.
Insert any ISP. Um, I'm going to say this. I would love to demystify the AI-driven network. You know, I always talk about data. It is the most important thing for any AI initiative to be successful. You probably saw it. I put out some quick little fun video about what buffalo chicken dip has to do with network
Yeah.
observability. If you don't have all the ingredients, it won't come out the way you want. It's the same thing with AI. You feed it the ingredients, it needs to be the smartest predictor of anything and everything in your IT infrastructure it can be. And if you don't feed it all of the ingredients it needs, it's going to not give you the most solid 100% answer that you expect. So, there's a lot of companies coming out today. You're well aware of these platforms that are coming out that are saying, we can help you deliver an AI driven network, but they sit on top of the customer's ecosystem. And what is the
Hmm.
customer's ecosystem? It's whatever network monitoring or network observability solution they have that collects all the data, and I mean all the data
Yeah.
from anywhere, their network, Verizon's network, ISP, unmanaged, managed, whatever the cloud. They sit on top of the partner's ecosystem, hoping that customer is collecting enough data to make their AI platform as smart as it can be. So,
Hmm.
again, an AI ready network, we're not ready for yet because we have to have the data discussion. You won't get AI ready if you're only feeding it 9 out of the 10 ingredients, 8 out of the 10
Yeah.
ingredients. You know what I mean? So it's about the data. And that's how you build these maturity steps up to a AI ready network. You're talking about AI driven and completely autonomous. I mean, Nick, that sounds scary as hell, honestly. I mean, because if we're not feeding it all the data, it's going to be making decisions off of hallucinations. Or it may be, like I always say, I would love to have our customers come into their knock on day one and go, hey, knock bot, what should I focus on this morning while I'm pouring my cup of coffee? And if it's not looking at, let's say, packet loss from the edge router of CenturyLink's ISP network, it's going to say, hey, the Seattle office looks great. That's using CenturyLink and no one's complaining. But if it's looking for packet loss in certain unmanaged networks or wherever, insert packet
Hmm.
loss, insert latency, whatever, insert configuration management. It could, if it's looking for all that, it's going to say to you, hey, I noticed some tickets are coming in from the Seattle office. And also, the edge router in Seattle is dropping packets above 10% thresholds. That's a
Hmm.
smart, autonomous, AI ready network because it knows what to look for, how to remediate it, and how to proactively find it in the future so you don't have to worry about these issues. What do you think?
I think there's this market is going to get segmented in multiple different ways. So I think there are like agents that have a role, and maybe it's like a level one engineer, kind of role, and that's mostly as a support role. And I'm not sure like where the line gets drawn between kind of a co-pilot and an agent. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Usually, co-pilot is more of a consultant, where an agent can actually do things,
Mm-hmm.
for you. So I'm kind of thinking that there is emerging in the market, like kind of not only just in kind of IT operations, but all corporate operations, a whole bunch of agents, and it's interesting too because those business models are The most prominent one I've seen is that, okay, you basically buy an agent and it's trained already, and then they'll train it more on your environment,
Mm-hmm.
and then that cost is about 20% the cost of a full-time person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of one model. So that's one model of agents. So, okay, great, you have these agents,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are other agents that really you don't interact with, but like they're kind of buried, and they're like sentinels, within the infrastructure, taking care of maybe small areas, like you mentioned, kind of like maybe there's an increase in jitter or there's an increase in latency,
Mm-hmm.
and so maybe you can look across a
Mm-hmm.
couple of different paths, and then make those changes, just like routers. Well, routers aren't
Mm-hmm.
that granular, but so making those kinds of minor tweaks, and really focused around capacity and reliability. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's another market segment, and I think you were alluding to this one at first, and that is, if we can, and this can go multiple different ways. So, can you aggregate an application's dependency map, um, and the data of all the emitters that are along that dependency map, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
by dependency map, I mean you have an application, and then you have everything that supports that application: the
Mm-hmm.
compute, the storage, kind of the networking, and on as much as you can on an end-to-end basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therein, that's a hard problem to solve, because there's no standardized way in which companies have developed their ways in which they emit state, for their particular, part of the market, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
a load balancer, whether that is, a router, a switch, or it's, an S3 bucket,
Mm-hmm.
so that's all over the map. And there are ways to deal with that, so there are, you can kind of create like a module kind of approach, where, like, you have this, whether it's a federated or kind of a more um, kind of consolidated, maybe set of agents, and then they have these kind of attachments, and those attachments are geared towards ingesting data from a certain set of products. And then that canonicalizes them and serializes them, and then puts it into a format that is consistent, for the kind of the agents to operate on. I think that's probably more realistic than having some, Uber data schema
Mm-hmm.
that everyone adheres to. So I think, so there's that, and then there's yet, so that's the AI agents that are really kind of like managing the infrastructure, and they are omnipresent. They have like all the
Mm-hmm.
visibility based
Mm-hmm.
upon all the data, and
Mm-hmm.
that's non-existent today.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other model. Sorry, it's a bunch of models, but I think this is probably more realistic, and that is, you have ecosystem models. So Broadcom has their model, and so it understands the emitters that it puts out, so it can create agents for its particular environment.
Mm-hmm.
Cisco the same way,
Mm-hmm.
Nvidia clearly
Mm-hmm.
the same way, and many other companies. And then the question is that then you have these agents that are kind of really tuned to a particular ecosystem, and then can you create? And this is probably possible, that you can create a federated approach. So, and almost like, a agent to agent exchange
Mm-hmm.
of information, versus trying to, like, absorb all the data from all over
Mm-hmm.
the kind of the supply chain,
Mm-hmm.
within the industry. So anyway, that's I'm what I'm saying, Jeremy, to answer your question. Sorry for the really long,
Mm-hmm.
explanation, or really it wasn't an explanation, but really kind of meandering kind of discussion. Is that I think that the industry is still figuring this out. It's still really early, and we're still kind of figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple different approaches, that are, being put forward, and that will be experimented with. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
how I see
And
it.
I agree. I think you were alluding to one part of that, which was, small pockets, right? There are many low-hanging fruit use cases that we can tackle today. Again, it's all fed by good quality data, so the AI engine can make intelligent predictions and analysis. But yeah, starting small is how we're going to get there. We're going to get there, but small use cases like putting more details in a help desk ticket, or escalating the help desk ticket automatically, or maybe rolling back a config that didn't meet the requirements because somebody didn't schedule it through the compliance committee, or whatever the case may be. These are the low-hanging fruit cases that not only we can learn from, but then build on. I mean, the perfect example, I just spoke to a customer the other day who had to keep postponing a meeting because he was forced to go back into the office, and nobody took the time to think about, oh, we sent everyone home for 5 years. Now we have this huge influx of people coming back into the office, and our bandwidth can't handle them because we downgraded to save money. And so, how do you train an AI to know to increase the bandwidth on day one when 10,000 people go into the headquarters of the building while you were trying to save money over the pandemic era? You know what I mean? And my point is that you and I both know networking is so complex right now. Every day there's something new. It speaks its own language, SD this, whatever that, that it's going to take time to train. And you can't train without knowing what data needs to be trained well, speaking that Cisco language, that Arista language, that Broadcom language to get the data. I loved your idea about federated per technology. I mean, there's wonderful ways we can do this to just learn how to do it right. I hate to say it as
this is kind of an experimental phase.
Yeah, totally. And I'll be the first to say, I sure as hell do not want.
Your thought.
Yeah, I'll be the first to say, as a running data centers in my previous career for 20 years, I do not want anything bouncing a network device without me knowing about it, because I'm going to be to blame, if it didn't work. So it better damn sure know it's supposed to bounce it, or it's supposed to restart a process, or it's supposed to create a configuration that changes this port from half duplex to full duplex because of this training it's supposed to be looking for, right? I mean, that's my job security, so until I'm sure that it knows what to do and when, given these parameters, we're going to need some very small use cases to build, little success, and just build from there. So it's exciting. And listen, these are all lessons learned. Every day we're learning new lessons. I mean, this is an exciting time.
Yeah.
It can be a little scary too.
Yeah. Well, there is I think it's the trust, and how do you gain trust? And I think you gain trust by, one step at a time, and it's almost like, being a good manager, it's like you have, kind of new employees, you give them responsibility, they do a good job, you give them more and give them more. And so they build that trust, as well. So I'm kind of thinking it's pretty much the same thing. I think we will get there. I'm not sure like what the time frame of it is to get there. It's like, we look at kind of the LLM, models, like they have, in a really short amount of time, like 18 months or so, since the ChatGPT moment, they've ingested kind of the world's history of knowledge, So, I think the thing that it's interesting in networkings and IT as well, this is all basically machines, and it seems like it's like now we excel that kind of human language and human knowledge, but in the very machines that we want to actually control these other machines, there's all this discontinuity in language. It's like because they all speak different languages, and also they're just so the rule sets are so complicated and different, and you get something wrong and you can have some really pretty big catastrophic outages and events. So I think the trust cycle is going to be really interesting to see how far we move with that.
2 points there. You talk about all these different flavors of vendor networking technology, and they do speak their own language, from Cisco OS to Junos to et cetera. And you need don't expect the AI engine to do all that analysis, because you're just going to prolong the answers you expect it to deliver back to you. You need that network observability ecosystem below the AI engine to be correlating and normalizing all that multi-vendor data, so it just surfaces to the AI engine a multiple data points that it can understand at a global multi-vendor networking level. So I don't need to know that this is a Cisco and this is a Junos. I just need to know the one parameter that tells me the health of all of those devices supporting that app, right? The entire ecosystem underneath, because then it can turn out answers like that. We should be doing the crunching for a lot of what the AI engine does, so we can speed up the responses that we want from it, or the decisions that it's going to make. The other thing is, Nick, is the biggest problem we have with all of this is the human factor. I mean, I just told you, I sure as hell would not want an AI engine bouncing a router I'm responsible for until I know it's going to do it the right way every single time. My company is asking us to start using an AI engine in the marketing side. You know, maybe it's summarizing a long blog that I wrote, or maybe it's just putting in some parameters that I could use as an email for someone to read the white paper I just wrote or something. And I'm fighting my manager about it because I feel like it's stealing my creativity. And that's just a human thing, right? You know, like as a musician, I know I'm old, and I studied on an instrument, but I don't like software writing music for me. I want to do it myself, and so I just think the human factor of trusting, like you said, it's a trust factor, trusting this new technology to do what we expect it to do with baby steps is going to be the hardest thing. And so, I started using the AI engine a little bit to help me with my marketing work, to make me more efficient, which is really the solution to any AI implementation, is to become more efficient. And I like what it's doing, but it's hard to let go of the creative side of what I think it's stealing from me, which I know it's not stealing anything from me. So,
Well, I totally get it. It's like my relationship with kind of the AI tools that I use have really changed, like especially in the last 6 months. So it used to be that, I would I might kind of craft, a memo, and mine has a lot to do with kind of like, writing. And also doing kind of analysis, as well. So I would normally, when I first started using these tools, I would kind of write a memo and say, okay, well, give this a more of a professional tone. Take out any bit of sarcasm in this note.
Yeah.
If I was writing something that I was a little bit, upset about, and so it would do that. Now, when I'm utilizing these tools, I'm not writing to begin with, but I basically, my prompt is pretty long. It's like, okay, I'm writing this memo to Jeremy. Look up Jeremy's background. I'm inviting him, to a podcast. I want to talk about these particular topics. Come up with like 5 questions, something like that. Just an example. And then so it will give me a response. I'll read it, and then I'll interact with it to get it right. So it's like where before it was like I would write it, give it to it, and then it would send it back. And now it's more of a kind of relationship, back and forth is how I'm doing it. And then also I've gotten comfortable with deep, I think it's deep search. So I've been using Gronk. I kind of switched over to Gronk 3, over the last couple of weeks. And so, we're basically looking at, so going back to like, Nick, we use a lot of AI tools. We use it in our social media, platforms. For all of our session descriptions, we use them. Joanne uses it in her marketing, to.
You're using it now in this podcast recording.
Yeah. So I know it's penetrated our business. And the last thing that we did, like we're really focusing on kind of growing the AI networking summit to be what some would call like a tier one, which is about 3,000 people, or so. So
Mm-hmm.
so in 2025, we'll be basically there across Dallas and New York and London.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we want to get in New York. It's interesting because the way that we're growing now is that whatever we do in New York in the year before, all of a sudden Dallas becomes that big, and then New York grows more.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to keep that momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
But in New York we have more space, and so we can really grow New York. So anyway, so I was doing interacting with these AI agents. And so I wanted to find, okay, well, what are the competitors, that we have in the space, and and how big are they, and where are we in the ranking? And it turns out, like if you take out the Nvidias and the Cisco Lives and all of the vendor shows and ecosystems, we're about sixth. So in ranking. So these are kind of the independent ones. So there's AI4, there's the AI Big Data, there's the AI Summit in New York, and there's a few others. And what's interesting about that those are all either they're very developer focused, they're very
Mm-hmm.
kind of data scientists, focused,
Mm-hmm.
or they're consumer focused, or they're like, I have no idea what their focus is. They're
Mm-hmm.
like all
Mm-hmm.
over the map.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I'm utilizing those tools to like kind of understand that, and then looking at particular strategic relationships where we can kind of come together. Because I think the bottom line is that this market we all know is growing
Mm-hmm.
exponentially, and so this is very similar to where the cloud market was probably in 2018, time frame. So there's and I think like there aren't. And actually, I would say that the AI Networking Summit is the largest enterprise AI gathering in the industry that's really focused around corporate consumption and use of AI. We're really strong on the infrastructure side of it, less so on the application side.
Mm-hmm.
And that we'll address that over time. Anyway, I'm not sure why I kind of went down this road with you.
Well, I have a
But I
good
was just
point
going
to
through the AI
say.
tools.
I want to give
Yes.
you some props because whatever you're doing, it's working. Because I didn't tell you this, but after I spoke at Fall last year in New York,
Yeah.
I had a vendor who puts on their own tech show, and they loved what they saw at your show, and now want to expand into the AI networking space for their show, and put me
Huh.
on their advisory board and gave me a free speaking slot because they loved what you were doing. I know it might be a competitor to yours, but I wouldn't worry about it. So whatever you're doing, it's working, and it's making ripples out there. So I'm always
Uh,
happy to be sponsoring and helping you guys and supporting all the efforts that you're doing because it's making a difference.
yeah. Well, thanks, Jeremy. Actually, that has a lot of weight coming from you because you go to probably more events than anybody else I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you're always on the road, always
Mm-hmm.
seeing things. So, you know, so anyway, your perspective would be really helpful, on, kind of where you see, the market of kind of events in our space are and where you think they're going to go. So that's a question. So where do you think?
Um, you know, I just hope that, and this is nothing against anyone, because I'm just being very cautious when it comes to AI and networking. I mean, listen, I just asked Chat GPT a few months ago for a side podcast I was thinking of doing about mental health to give me a picture of two guys sitting on a sofa with a hoodie and sunglasses on, looking all badass, and it's going to be guys talking about their feelings. And what did it give me? It gave me two guys with a hoodie and sunglasses on sitting on the sofa. One of them had 8 fingers, and the other one looked like he went through the windshield of a car in a car accident. So we're not there yet. So I would hope that
That is
as
so
we can,
true.
I know, right? So as we continue,
So
and it,
true.
right, and it was, maybe it was my prompt, but I would have thought the AI engine would have known well enough to know that humans have 5 fingers and not 8 on one hand. But I just hope as we continue this discussion through trade shows and any kind of content, that we come to it with, we're here to help. You don't have to boil the ocean. AI is scary as hell, but we're not telling you to do it all at once. Let's get down to business with those small use cases so you can feel success. You can see the success. Let's not just be like, let's just not scare them with this big AI monster coming and you have to do something now, because that's bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not going to take over the world today. It's going to make us efficient one day, and we can get there. So I want to make sure these conferences lean into the customers at how apprehensive they can be about AI, and see us and you and every other vendor out there as a trusted partner to take them down the road and not just sell them software.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like right now for the spring show, there's one session on kind of from the front lines kind of session around um, folks who have used kind of chatbots, and what are the use cases that they've been using them within their corporation. It is the hardest one to recruit for. No one wants to talk about it.
Because it's scary as hell. Yeah.
You know, it's like
And
yeah,
and
they
and Nick, I think we need more. And I haven't seen the agenda for spring yet, but I would hope we would have more uh, discussions around how to build a maturity practice to get you to that chatbot stage. Right? This is not
yeah
a sprint. You have to have the data there, intelligent data, to be fed into the chatbot to do what you want. And a lot of people don't have all the data yet.
yeah
And so we have to build out the foundation, or help build out the foundation for our customers, so they feel uh, they can feel success, they can trust the data that they're collecting, that they're feeding to the chatbot. It's baby steps, and we're not here to boil the ocean. So this is not going to be fixed tomorrow. It will make us more efficient, and if we show them that trust by helping them and holding their hands along the way, we're all going to be successful. So.
yeah. And I think also they need to um, express, what's working, what's not working,
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we need the feedback loop. It's
Yeah,
not just kind
yeah,
of like just telling them. All right. So you mentioned mental health a couple of times.
yeah,
So you're going to do a podcast, on it, which actually I think is super, super idea. So,
yeah.
what were you going to do?
Well, I was going to do a podcast with a friend of mine around the fact that men don't talk about their feelings a lot, and it can be very important, and vulnerability is a gift. But it's actually morphed into something new. I don't want to throw too much out there yet, but Nick, you may remember, and your staff of your great staff that I love dearly. No, I
Mm.
went through a DNA story recently and found my entire family, and
Yeah.
it's morphing into that. So
Uh,
it's just getting
yeah.
started. There's nothing to plug yet, but I've gotten a lot of agreement from the family members to tell this story, because there's DNA stories happening every single day, and they're scary as
Mm.
hell, just like asking an AI engine to reboot a router for you. I mean, so I just wanted to be able to shed light on the fact that, yeah, DNA stories and meeting your father for the first time, or finding your siblings for the first time, or whatever the case may be, can be really tough, but also can be the greatest love story you'll ever witness in your entire life.
Yeah.
Well,
Mm.
I'm sure I'll talk about that more. If I could plug what I'm going to plug, which is the NetOps Expert podcast. So, from a Broadcom standpoint, we talk everything networking, and you can check it out on all the platforms out there. But I also got I took a sidetrack with the NetOps Expert, and I've recorded 3 episodes so far, and I'm calling them a spotlight on compassion. So
Yeah.
know that at your
Mm.
shows that we give away these little bags or big bags called that are the foundation for supporting a group in the Dominican Republic called New Hope Girls, and they
Yeah.
rescue endangered and trafficked girls there and pull them out of the homes or rescue them from the airports as they're about to be forced on a plane, school them, house them securely, and give them the means they need to be successful. And the moms there create all these beautiful bags and sell them to support. I did recently, just look up the NetOps expert on YouTube. You'll see New Hope Girls there. I recently recorded another one with Seamus McGillicuddy from Enterprise
Yeah.
Management Associates, and the work he's doing in his community, the profound work he's doing in his community. And I'm in Phoenix now, and I recently moved to Phoenix to spend a lot of time with my oldest brother, which is wonderful. And I'm helping a local foundation here who is teaching underprivileged kids in some horrific neighborhoods the sport of tennis. And what
Yeah.
tennis teaches them is balance and determination and focus and the thrill of winning and teamwork.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the NetOps Expert podcast taking this mini sidetrack to highlight what's really most important today, which is beautiful work being done in underserved communities that need it the most. So
I tell you what I love about you, Jeremy. You're so friggin' human. You know, it's like
took me a long time.
you're not. Yeah, you're not just a networking savant.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you're human and you're comfortable expressing it, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Nick,
You
you and
know,
I are getting older, and you just find that there's more important things in life as you get older that bring beauty out of you and love out of you. And yes, networking pays the bills, but I sure as hell don't want to be a tech influencer until I'm 90. I want to use my expertise like I'm doing for this tennis foundation
uh,
called Serve the Future. I'm doing marketing and social media for them to help build up their share of voice in the Phoenix area. So, yeah, a lot of
yeah,
our tech can do a lot of good
oh,
out there.
super.
Yeah.
Yeah, can, and also a lot of us professionals, can as well. It's like we're highly educated,
Yes.
individuals in the industry, and we're usually pretty deep thinkers, and we know how to solve problems, and
Yes. Solve
and you just really, need to just um, find a problem that you really want to solve that will have a big impact,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing that. I haven't really kind of found that passion yet, so I need to do that,
Yeah.
sooner than later, so, but
Well,
you
listen,
inspire me.
thank you. Thank you. And going through my DNA story 5 years ago definitely changes your outlook on things and what's most
Mm.
important. And for my family to accept me on day one unconditionally, just open your eyes. Just opens your eyes to a lot of things in the world and how you can make a difference. So I appreciate it. I'm
What a
glad you let me
beautiful way
share that.
to, yeah, no, I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I
Thank
don't
you.
think we should end on anything other than that. That's a
Beautiful.
nice uplifting end,
There you go.
So, Jeremy, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Yeah,
Thank
love
you,
it.
Nick. Yeah, I can't wait to see you in the
Yeah,
spring and the
great.
fall. Tell the team and your wife I said hi, and can't wait to knock it out in the spring. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we have to we should talk a little bit about playing something together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have the band there. So and I'm really I think it's been so much fun to have that ending. Where everyone
Yeah,
can come up and play
so
something.
much
It's
fun. So
actually
much
it's a
fun.
lot of fun. Yeah,
Well, listen,
a lot of
what you
fun.
should do is send
Okay.
me some of the songs
Mhm.
you're interested in because you played the Foo Fighter song in New York, and I know that song very well. I wish I would have picked it and played it,
Ah,
but we should talk about what you and I know,
ah,
and maybe we can get up on stage. Maybe I could sing it. You could play the electric. I'll play a rhythm part, and we can definitely collaborate on stage.
okay. That sounds great.
Yeah, I'll
Awesome.
bring the ripped
Great.
jeans
Jeremy.
and the concert T-shirt. We'll be there.
Jeremy, thanks. And thanks everyone for plugging in.
Thank you, Nick.